Today, as I sat in the audience watching my son confidently present the automatic garbage robot his team had invented, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. But more than that, I felt gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons my mother passed on to me many years ago. I remember one Sunday afternoon 15 years ago when my wife and I visited my mother to share the incredible news that we were expecting our first child. As we talked about the future, I couldn't help but dream of all the ways I would cherish and care for my little one. I wanted to give them everything. My mother was overjoyed, and in her wisdom, she offered advice that has stayed with me to this day. She said, "Raising a child isn't about giving them everything. It's about teaching them to find their own way." Those words became the foundation of how I parent. My mother shared stories of how she raised me, not by overindulging, but by instilling resilience, responsibility, and the values of emotional strength. These lessons shaped me into the person I am today, and they've guided me as I've raised my own son. In this video, I'll share with you the most important lessons I've learned, what to avoid giving your children to ensure they grow into happy, capable, and independent individuals. These insights are not just practical, they're deeply rooted in the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Stay with me, and I'll show you how to apply these principles effectively in your parenting journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more life-changing insights. Let's begin. 1. The hidden danger of premature comfort. As parents, we often dream of giving our children the best, sparing them from struggle, shielding them from hardship, and creating a life of ease. I understand this deeply because I too want my child to grow up without worries. But let me tell you a story that changed my perspective. I have a friend. Growing up, he never had to lift a finger. His parents adored him, showered him with everything he wanted, and excused him from chores or responsibilities. It seemed like the perfect childhood. Yet, when he got married, life taught him a harsh lesson. His wife fell ill, and for the first time, he faced the responsibilities of running a household. Laundry piled up, dishes were left undone, and he stood helpless. A grown man, overwhelmed not by the complexities of life but by the simplest of tasks. You see, giving a child too much comfort is like planting a tree in shallow soil. It grows, yes, but its roots remain weak, unable to anchor it in the storms of life. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "Difficulties show what men are. Without challenges, how can we expect our children to build resilience, self-reliance, or strength?" Premature comfort creates a false sense of security. It's like teaching a child to swim by holding them above the water. They feel safe, but they'll never learn to float. True love, as Stoicism teaches, is not about shielding children from pain, but preparing them to face it. A child who learns to embrace discomfort, whether it's completing chores, dealing with disappointments, or solving their own problems, gains something far greater than comfort. They gain character. Think about this. How often do we step in to make things easier for our children? We do their homework, tidy their rooms, or even shield them from failure. It feels like love, but it can quietly erode their independence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." By allowing children to confront life's small difficulties, we give them the tools to navigate larger challenges later. One way to address this is through small, daily tasks. Ask your child to set the table, manage their pocket money, or solve minor disputes on their own. These may seem insignificant, but they teach essential life skills: responsibility, resourcefulness, and perseverance. Andrew's story has a hopeful ending. He realized his limitations and chose to change. He started small, learning to cook, to clean, and to organize his time. Over the years, he grew into the man his family could depend on. But his journey could have started much earlier had he been taught the value of responsibility as a child. As parents, we must remember that comfort is not the ultimate gift. The ability to stand strong amidst discomfort is. By teaching our children to face life's storms, we prepare them not just to survive, but to thrive. And isn't that the greatest legacy we can leave behind? 2. The poison of comparisons. Does the haunting memory of childhood comparisons begin to resurface? You felt the frustration rise, unable to put it into words, with tears welling up as you endured the endless comparisons. Sometimes, You even found yourself resenting the very person you were being measured against. For me, it was my mother's remarks after every math test. Although she taught me many valuable lessons, she couldn't resist comparing my grades to those of the neighbor's son, who always seemed to excel. I had worked so hard for that test, giving it my all, yet her words crushed me. At that moment, I felt invisible, like no matter what I achieved, it was never enough. I know many of you have experienced this. The weight of being measured against someone else's accomplishments lingers, sometimes for years. That's because comparisons rob us of joy and erode our confidence. Stoic philosophy warns us against this habit, not just in parenting, but in life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't set your heart on things outside your control." Each child is a unique individual, born with their own strengths, challenges, and timelines. Comparing them is like expecting a fish to climb a tree. The damage of comparisons runs deep. A study by the University of Illinois revealed that children frequently compared to siblings or peers often grow up with higher levels of anxiety and lower self-esteem. Imagine hearing, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Or, "Your friend already got that promotion, what are you waiting for?" These seemingly harmless remarks pile up over time, becoming bricks in an invisible wall separating parent and child, or worse, sibling from sibling. One of my closest friends lived through this. As the younger sibling, he constantly heard, "Your brother had a job at your age. Why are you still struggling?" It wasn't until adulthood that he admitted how those comparisons shaped his life. He became hesitant to take risks, terrified of failing in a way that would draw more criticism. His relationship with his brother grew strained, not because of anything they did to each other, but because of the wedge that comparisons drove between them. Instead of comparing, parents can embrace the wisdom of Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Replace comparisons with encouragement. Celebrate your child's efforts, even when the results fall short of perfection. Remind them that progress matters more than competition. Here's a practical example. When your child brings home a test, resist the urge to ask about the class average. Instead, ask them, "What do you feel proud of?" Or, "What was the hardest part, and how did you handle it?" These questions shift the focus from external validation to internal growth, teaching them to measure success by their own standards, not others. I've learned that every child has their own path. Some bloom early, others later, but each is extraordinary in its own way. As parents, our role is not to compare one flower to another, but to nurture the soil so that each can flourish. By letting go of comparisons, we create a home where confidence and individuality thrive. 3. Overprotection from failure. When I was a child, there were moments when I desperately wanted my mother to step in and solve my problems for me. Whether it was a fight with a classmate or struggling to finish a school project, I'd look to her for an easy way out. But instead of fixing things, she would calmly offer me advice. "Think about it. What's the best way for you to handle this?" At the time, I felt abandoned. I couldn't understand why she wouldn't just solve the issue and make my life easier. Now, as an adult, I finally see the gift she gave me. Her decision to let me navigate those challenges on my own was her way of teaching me resilience, self-reliance, and courage. But not all children are given this opportunity. In today's world, many parents try to shield their kids from failure. From micromanaging homework to intervening in playground arguments, they create an illusion of security. However, overprotection doesn't strengthen a child, it weakens them. It's like going to the gym and having your trainer lift the weights for you. The muscles don't grow, and neither does the confidence. Stoic philosophy speaks directly to this. Epictetus taught us, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. Challenges are not obstacles to be avoided. They are essential lessons that shape character. Without experiencing failure, a child never learns the satisfaction of overcoming it. Take my colleague's story. She wanted to spare her son the embarrassment of losing in school sports, so she frequently spoke to the coach, insisting her son be given easier tasks during practice. While her intentions were loving, the result was devastating. Her son grew up unable to handle criticism and avoided competitive environments altogether. It wasn't until he entered adulthood that he began to understand the value of effort and persistence. But by then, he felt years behind his peers. What can parents do differently? Instead of solving every problem, guide your child to find their own solutions. If they fail a test, ask them, what will you do differently next time? If they struggle with a difficult decision, offer support, but let them choose. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Teaching this principle helps children internalize their ability to control their responses, even when life feels unfair. A parent's instinct is to protect, but true love sometimes means stepping back. Let your children stumble, let them face setbacks, and be there to encourage them when they rise again. Life's storms will come, and your role is not to shield them from the rain, but to help them build an umbrella. By allowing your children to experience failure, you give them the tools they need to thrive in an unpredictable world. Because in the end, resilience is the greatest inheritance we can offer. 4. Money without financial wisdom. It is often said, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This timeless wisdom is particularly true when it comes to money and children. Financial support without financial education is like handing someone a map without teaching them how to read it. They may be lost before they even begin their journey. Growing up, my mother taught me a lesson that has stayed with me to this day. When I was a teenager, I wanted a new bike. It wasn't something she could afford to give me outright, but instead of saying no, she told me, if you can save half the money, I'll match it. At first, I was frustrated. Why couldn't she just buy it for me? But as I worked odd jobs and saved every dollar, I learned the value of patience, effort, and managing my resources. When I finally bought the bike, it wasn't just a possession, it was a symbol of my hard work. Today, many parents give their children money freely, thinking it will make life easier for them. But Stoic philosophy warns us of the dangers of ease. Seneca once wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." When children receive money without understanding its value, they often fall into the trap of entitlement. They start to believe that money is the solution to every problem, and they lose the drive to earn or save. This can lead to a phenomenon known as rich heir syndrome, where individuals who inherit wealth squander it within a generation. Studies show that 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation and 90% by the third. Why? Because the recipients of this wealth were never taught how to manage it. Instead of viewing money as a tool, they see it as an endless resource until it's gone. The lesson my mother taught me shaped how I view financial independence. I have a friend who experienced the opposite. His parents gave him everything, tuition, a car, even money for daily expenses, without asking for accountability. When he graduated, he struggled to keep a job and manage his budget. The ease of his upbringing had not prepared him for the real world, and it took years of trial and error for him to find his footing. As parents, it's natural to want to give our children the best. But the best gift isn't money itself. It's the wisdom to earn, manage, and grow it. Simple practices, like involving children in budgeting or teaching them about saving, can create a foundation of financial literacy. Warren Buffett famously said, "I will leave enough money for my children to do something, but not enough to do nothing." When we teach children the value of money, we're giving them a lifelong skill. It's not about how much they have, but how wisely they use it. And in this wisdom lies their independence, resilience, and ability to thrive in any circumstance. 5. The harm of unrealistic praise. Praise is a powerful tool, but when used carelessly, it can become a double-edged sword. I once saw this vividly during a visit to a small cafe. A mother sat at a nearby table with her son, who was doodling on a napkin. The drawing was crude, with scribbles more chaotic than creative. Yet the mother exclaimed loudly, "You're a genius. This is better than Picasso." The boy grinned, but there was something unsettling about the scene. The praise was so exaggerated that it felt insincere. As I sipped my coffee, I thought about how often parents fall into this trap. They want to encourage their children, but in their eagerness, they inflate compliments to the point where they lose meaning. While the boy looked happy at the moment, I wondered what would happen when he encountered genuine criticism later in life. Would he have the resilience to accept it, or would the weight of unrealistic expectations crush him? This experience reminded me of my own childhood. My friend's mother always showered him with praise, sometimes even for things he didn't do. Meanwhile, my own mother was sparing with her words of approval. At times, I felt envious of my friend. His mother's adoration seemed boundless, while mine often remained silent. But as I grew older, I came to appreciate the depth of my mother's restraint. Her praise was rare but real, and when she gave it, I knew I had truly earned it. Stoic philosophy offers wisdom here. Epictetus wrote, "It is not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." Overpraising children shields them from reality, fostering fragile egos that crumble at the first sign of failure. Instead of preparing them for life's challenges, it creates a false sense of security. Consider this. If a child is constantly told they're exceptional, even when they're not, they might begin to equate self-worth with external validation. What happens when the world doesn't agree? When their boss doesn't applaud their every effort? When they face setbacks that no one cheers them through? The solution isn't to withhold praise, but to make it meaningful. Praise effort, not just results. Celebrate perseverance, creativity, and improvement. For example, instead of saying, "You're so smart, try," "I'm proud of how hard you worked on that project." This shifts the focus from innate talent, which can feel fixed, to effort, which a child can control and improve upon. A balanced approach to praise teaches children that success isn't about constant applause. It's about the satisfaction of genuine achievement. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Let us model this lesson for our children, showing them that true worth comes from within, not from others' approval. In a world eager to overpraise, let us choose sincerity, for it is through honest recognition that our children grow strong, confident, and resilient. And isn't that the ultimate goal of parenting? 6. Projecting your dreams. Parents often dream of their children achieving great things. It's natural. We want the best for them, and sometimes we see their potential in ways they might not. But where do we draw the line between encouragement and projection? Whose dreams are we truly in? Let me share a story that hit close to home. My neighbor Emily had always dreamed of becoming a doctor. Life took her on a different path, but she held on to that vision, quietly transferring it to her daughter, Amy. From a young age, Amy's life was carefully shaped around this goal. Extra science classes, volunteer hours at the hospital, and countless discussions about medical school. At first, Sarah followed along, eager to please her mother. But as she grew older, it became clear her passion lay elsewhere, in art. She loved painting and spent hours working on her pieces in secret. One day, she confessed to Emily that she wanted to pursue art school instead of pre-med. The disappointment in Emily's eyes crushed Sarah, and for years she pushed her dream aside to follow her mother's wishes. Stoic philosophy offers timeless guidance here. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." Each person has a finite time on this earth to pursue their own path. As parents, our role is not to steer our children toward our unfulfilled dreams, but to empower them to discover their own. When we project our aspirations onto our children, we unintentionally create a heavy burden. They may follow the path we set for them, but it often comes at the cost of their happiness and authenticity. Over time, resentment can build toward us, toward the dream itself, and even toward their own choices. The key is to listen, to observe, and to support without controlling. Ask yourself, what truly makes my child's eyes light up? What do they gravitate toward naturally? And most importantly, are my expectations aligned with their desires? Take my own childhood as an example. My father had always hoped I'd follow in his footsteps and become an engineer. But my passion was writing. When I told him, he hesitated, but instead of dismissing my dream, he asked, "How can I help you achieve this?" His words stayed with me. They didn't just validate my choice, they gave me the courage to pursue it wholeheartedly. Encouragement is not about shaping your child into a version of yourself. It's about giving them the tools and the freedom to explore who they are meant to be. Seneca wisely said, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Let's allow our children to use their lives fully, chasing what truly matters to them, not to us. In the end, a child who follows their own dreams will not only thank you for your support, but will carry forward the courage and wisdom you gave them. And isn't that what parenting is truly about? 7. Failing to listen. As parents, we often believe we know what's best for our children. We give advice, share our experiences, and try to guide them toward the right path. But in the process, how often do we stop and truly listen to what they have to say? I remember a moment that changed the way I see parenting. A friend of mine, James, shared a story about his teenage daughter, Bonnie. She had come home from school visibly upset. He asked her, "What's wrong?" But before she could even answer, he jumped in with solutions. "Did someone bully you? Was it about your grades? Don't worry, just focus on your studies." Bonnie nodded quietly, but James later found out from his wife that Bonnie had been feeling overwhelmed by the pressure of juggling school, extracurriculars, and friendships. What she needed wasn't a fix, it was someone to hear her, to understand her struggles. Stoic philosophy reminds us of the power of silence and listening. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding emotions, fears, and unspoken needs. When we fail to listen, we build walls of miscommunication, creating distance between ourselves and our children. Think about how many times you've cut your child off mid-sentence to offer advice or dismiss their feelings with a phrase like, "You'll understand when you're older." While these responses may come from a place of care, they send a subtle message: your voice doesn't matter. Over time, this can erode a child's confidence and make them reluctant to share their thoughts with you. A recent study from the University of Michigan revealed that children who feel heard by their parents are more likely to develop emotional resilience and stronger relationships in adulthood. Listening, then, is not just a skill, it's a gift that shapes their future. Here's a practical example. One evening, when my own child came to me looking upset, I resisted the urge to jump in with advice. Instead, I simply asked, "How are you feeling?" and then stayed silent. At first it felt awkward, but eventually they opened up about something that had been troubling them for weeks. That moment reminded me of the importance of creating space for their voice. Listening also means withholding judgment. Sometimes your child might say things that surprise or even upset you. But instead of reacting, consider what Marcus Aurelius taught. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change, for it is the truth I seek. Listening with an open heart allows us to understand their truth, not impose our own. In a world full of noise, let us be the quiet place where our children feel seen and heard. When we truly listen, we don't just hear their words, we strengthen the bond that carries us through life's challenges together. 8. Abusing trust. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, especially between a parent and child. It's built over time and strengthened through love and understanding. But what happens when this trust is unintentionally misused? Sometimes, in our desire to help, we overstep boundaries, creating dependency instead of independence. I remember a family friend, Linda, a kind-hearted mother who adored her son. He was in his late 20s, but still living at home. He had always relied on Linda, not just for financial support, but for everything: cooking, cleaning, even deciding on his career path. Linda often said, "I'm just helping him until he finds his footing." But as months turned into years, he grew more reliant on her and less confident in his own abilities. One day, Linda confided in me, frustrated and exhausted. "I feel like his maid, not his mother," she said. Yet when I asked why she hadn't set boundaries, she hesitated. What if he feels abandoned? It was clear that her love for him had turned into overbearing care, robbing him of the chance to stand on his own. Stoic philosophy provides clarity in such situations. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." True love isn't about doing everything for someone, it's about empowering them to do it themselves. When we constantly intervene, we deny our children the opportunity to develop autonomy and responsibility. Think about a bird learning to fly. A parent bird doesn't carry its fledgling forever. It pushes them to the edge of the nest, encouraging them to spread their wings. The process is nerve-wracking and filled with tumbles, but it's the only way they learn to soar. Similarly, our role as parents is to guide, not to carry. There's a simple solution to prevent this overreach. Boundaries. Setting healthy limits is not a sign of withholding love, it's a demonstration of it. For example, if your child is struggling with finances, offer advice instead of a blank check. Teach them how to budget or brainstorm solutions together. When they ask for help with chores, guide them through it instead of doing it for them. Over time, these small acts of encouragement build self-reliance. Marcus Aurelius wisely noted, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." By stepping back, we allow our children to face obstacles and find their own paths forward. Linda eventually decided to have an honest conversation with him. She explained that her role wasn't to live his life for him, but to support him as he built his own. It wasn't easy at first. There were tears, resistance, and even anger. But with time, he began to take responsibility for himself. And for Linda, she rediscovered the joy of being a parent, not a caretaker. In the end, the most profound act of love is to trust our children to grow, even if it means letting go. Only when they face life on their own can they truly learn to thrive. Parenting is a journey of love, patience, and growth, not just for our children, but for ourselves. Through this video, we've explored the essence of Stoic parenting, guiding our children toward independence, resilience, and wisdom. These lessons remind us that our role is not to control, but to empower, not to shield, but to prepare. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." To teach resilience, we must embody it. To instill self-reliance, we must allow our children to face life's storms. It's not always easy, but it is necessary. Growth, for both parent and child, comes from embracing these challenges together. I encourage you to take one small step today. Reflect on your parenting approach and consider how you can foster independence and strength in your child. Perhaps it's by stepping back in a situation where you'd normally step in, or by setting a healthy boundary that encourages them to grow. Let's create a community of parents striving to nurture not just successful children, but resilient and compassionate human beings. Share your thoughts and stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. If this video resonated with you, like and subscribe to Stoic Narratives Official for more insights on parenting and personal growth. Together, let's embrace these lessons every day.